Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Golf in Politics. And Rob, I helped get him elected, and now you got to deal with him. First week of Congress. This is what, your 11th Congress working on Capitol Hill?
It is.
Are you that old? Are you really that old?
I'm not. I started at age 19, as you know, for John Boehner back in my Republican days. And 2 years later, I worked with you for Congressman Nate from Ohio. And so, yeah, this is my 21st year somehow. But it seems like it was a minute ago. Sometimes it's exhausting. But on behalf of the District of Columbia, thank you very much for sending us down. I believe he took about 4% of the vote in the District of Columbia. It overperformed. He came in third place. And I'm still questioning how it was so high. He did.
All I can say is I'm very thankful that the District of Columbia doesn't have any representation in the United States Senate. And I'm very glad we've sent to the United States Senate Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, whose picture is behind me there. Did a fantastic job in the hearings this week. It made all of the Okies proud, that's for sure.
Well, on behalf of all of the taxpayers of the District of Columbia, and thousands of people have served in the armed services for this country, we have a larger population than 3 states. We pay a disproportionate share of taxes than anywhere else in the country besides Los Angeles or New York. So go to hell. We deserve representation in Washington, D.C. And I have a lot of comments on Mark Wayne's performance in that hearing, but I'll leave it for another podcast.
Well, we also want to introduce, we have a guest co-host with us today. Jake Marvin was a guest on our show, and he knows so much about golf course architecture. And Jake has played over 500 golf courses, is a golf course raider. And mainly we wanted to have him on here because he's cheering for the right team in the national championship game coming up on January 20th. He's cheering for Notre Dame. Rob is disgracing our show with an Ohio State logo there. And I'm not even a Notre Dame fan, Jake. You have to understand, as a 7-year-old child, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish absolutely crushed my soul when they beat my West Virginia Mountaineers. We had Lou Holtz on our show. And, I tried to tell Coach Lou Holtz that West Virginia would have won if Major Harris didn't get hurt in that game, and he shut that down immediately. But that's the last time Notre Dame won a national championship until Monday.
Wait.
And are you going to Atlanta?
Yeah, I think we're going to go to the game. I have to say my take on the outcome is roughly the same as what Lou Holtz put on Twitter the other day. So I think we're going to be seeing a good one. I think everyone's sort of underrating us a little bit, but now that I see Matt, it's a hat wearing podcast. I guess I can just grab mine off the shelf and we can go full board.
There you go. Nice. I'm a huge fan of Marcus Freeman. I think he's doing a great job. And I think Ohio State is probably the better team, but I think Notre Dame's got heart. So, Rob, you also are going to the national title game. Is that right?
I am. And I got to have something to look forward to. I mean, the Steelers are out. We peaked too early. But unlike the Steelers, Ohio State's really peaking at the right time. I mean, we're playing our best football at exactly the right time. I think it's going to be a good game. I think Notre Dame's got a great team. I have no beef with the Irish, but definitely pulling for the Buckeyes here.
I'm pretty sure that Ohio State's payroll is more than the Steelers, so that helps. Well, moving along, we have an unbelievable guest for you guys today, and I just want to start by saying this. As we go forward and ask questions of this amazing guest that we have today, even though I've played golf since I was 13 years old, I have never really had the appreciation for golf course architecture that I've started to have in my older age. I'm beginning to learn more and more, play some great golf courses around the world, and I'm really interested to ask some questions tonight and learn even more. I just got done reading a book authored by our guest tonight. Our guest is Geoff Shackelford. Geoff Shackelford is a contributor to the Golf Channel. He writes for Golf Digest, Golf Magazine, Golf World. He has his own Substack newsletter that he puts out weekly. I believe it's weekly. And is probably one of the leading experts on golf course architecture in the world. Rob, is there anything you want to add to this introduction?
Well, he was always has great hot takes on what's going on. I tend to agree with them. Geoff, you also played at Pepperdine, right?
I did. I played college golf a long time ago.
At the Waves, and really, I mean, I first met Geoff in 2017 on the first hole at the Masters, and so Geoff, my first question is really about where do you think the state of Augusta National is? I know at the time you had been critical about their tree program, the rough, taking away angles, getting rid of some of the, the original Mackenzie Jones character. So, where do you think the course is, and what would you like to see happen at Augusta National?
Well, it's an interesting situation. Thanks, guys, for having me on. I appreciate the kind introduction. Yeah, Augusta National is an interesting place. You were, I know, just there, and you were one of the few people who've seen it since the tree damage. I have to be careful, but unfortunately, a lot of the new trees they planted were not harmed by the hurricane. So that probably gives you an idea how I feel about the effort. They've selectively removed a few of them that they did plant, but I think, I mean, I have a good relationship there now with the club and the tournament. I get called on when I raise my hand in a press conference, so that's usually a good sign. But I think they know where I'm coming from, which is that, when I've criticized the course, it's been from a place of having studied Bobby Jones and Alistair McKenzie's writings and what their intention was with the design. And so once they, I think, understand that, because if you're not aware, they literally treat Bobby Jones's writings as a sort of a Bible, and Clifford Roberts as well. And they quote it like scripture to you. And so that's probably what's changed their perception of me a little bit. And then also, obviously, having a chairman now who I believe is the first chairman to ever even mention the name Alistair McKenzie, which is weird, I realize, but it does show you where the various chairmen from Clifford Roberts. Now, Clifford Robertson, he's had kind of got tangled up in a few things. He didn't pay McKenzie's bill, and Clifford Roberts just do nothing about golf architecture. Ruined a couple of greens out there, and really did some crazy stuff. And so I think that they're on the right track in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, as you guys know, when you're designing for professional golfers, and the more the game has changed for the way they play it, it's very hard to keep the course relevant for them while also sticking to some of the original design values or trying to restore them. And that's the challenge that Fred Ridley has. And he's trying, but it's a tough thing when you're dealing with guys who carry the ball 320 yards in the air, and your members are not doing that.
Well, Geoff, I'd be interested to hear, based off of that, and the challenge that they continue to have to keep the course relevant, where do you think Augusta continues to go in the next 10 to 15 years to keep the course relevant? Do you think that a ball rollback would end the need for that? Or even with that, would they have to continue to make changes to that golf course to keep it relevant for the pro game?
Yeah, I'd hoped it was going to make an impact, but even of late, people who are on the inside on all that are starting to not sound as excited about the potential. So you'll see they've just continued to add length, or at least I should say this. The chairman last year essentially said we're not going to be moving tees forward. I think the biggest thing they could do that would be helpful for the game overall, because they do have such an influence. Yeah, they only have 2 tee boxes on each hole, and they're very excited. I think they get enamored with sort of the minimalist look. There's a bench, 2 little pieces of pine, and it is beautiful. However, we've seen it's really cool when you have a golf course where you can move tees around, and Southern Hills at the PGA, LA Country Club, which I worked on with Gil Hans. There's a lot of areas where you just have tight turf off a green into the tee, and you can move tees wherever you'd like. And so they get into a little bit of trouble sometimes because they all have the member tees are so different than the tournament tees. And I think trying to find a place where they get a little more of that flexibility so they can move things around for the weather. But also interestingly, Rob, I'd love to hear what you think. I don't know what tees you played, but I get this report a lot, and it's people like don't tell them I said this, but yeah, I'm a single digit, and we had to play the member tees, and they're too short for somebody who's a decent player, not a great player or not a tour pro, but a good golfer. And you even see it with the women now in the Augusta National Women's Amateur. They're from the member tee, they're hitting a little flip wedge into number 11, but the next tee is 100 and it's like 400 yards back in the trees. So that's something I'd love to see them try to figure out how to do and deal with because they do set an example for the game, whether we like it or not.
We kind of jumped around because we got to play it twice, which was wonderful. So the first round we played all from the member tees, and then our member was really cool and was like, "Yeah, if you guys want to go back and play certain holes or hit certain shots, feel free to do it." The difference from when I played it in December was that the fairways were a little bit high. So you weren't getting a lot of the rollout that they get during Masters Week. It's tuned up like March 1st through the tournament. And it was a little chilly. So our caddies were like, look, if you want to play the tips, it's going to play a hell of a lot longer than it even does in the Masters. So it was kind of not really an accurate depiction, but I could see where you're coming from. On the par threes, we played it from where they played it from. For the pros, though, I mean, to Jake's point, building off of that, do angles really matter there anymore when these guys can hit a pitching wedge 165 yards?
Yeah.
Or a 9-iron? Or, why should we care what the score is? Everyone is so...
Oh, they do.
Yeah, I know they do.
They do. They say they don't, but they do.
Yeah, so I think that it was really a special experience. I enjoyed getting to do it. I enjoyed the history, and I read a lot before I went there to refresh my memory on all the changes over time. But I'm sort of the opinion that length does not make the golf course harder for those guys. I mean, look at Marion when Justin Rose won with a +1 score on a 6,900 yard golf course. I don't think you could make a course long enough that it would matter. If you have a 550 yard par 4 and they hit it 340, they've got 160 in with a 9-iron or wedge. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You're not
Well,
really...
that's a big problem, too, is they fixate on the 9, not the yardage the guy has in. And, that's another issue that's rears its head.
Well, I wanted to ask you real quick. I know you're an LA guy and you live in Santa Monica, Pepperdine grad. With everything that's going on in LA right now, just want to see how you're doing, how your friends are doing, anything you've experienced this week that you could share with the rest of the country.
Well, it's a brutal situation. It's awful, and it's hard to explain just how vibrant the areas that burned were, just in every way, architecturally and community spirit and just on down the list. And so everybody's just devastated and aware and I guess just kind of at a loss because, the Palisades where I grew up had largely most of the homes had been rebuilt, a lot of new buildings, and some of those survived, but it's just shocking what didn't survive and how fast it happened, how random, how weird. The whole thing is just, psychologically beyond the toll to the area. Altadena was more, older buildings, so and near a hillside, and then, but you go to the Palisades and just these huge areas that you would never imagine could burn, and homes that you never could believe. And then, of course, you'll see things that survive, like a home that just started construction that's all wood, exposed frame. You go, well, how does that not burn? And so it's just random. It's weird. it's so extreme and cruel, and how fast it happens, and it's going to be a very long, difficult process, and it will never be the same.
Well, you'd be pleased to know that throughout Washington, D.C. and the rest of the country, there are a lot of fire management experts
Yes, we
who,
noticed. Yeah,
who
yeah.
know a lot about what's going on, and they're very concerned about your DEI mayor and your lesbian fire chief. So I wonder what you think. What do your friends think about all of these comments?
I'm hopeful that most of these people who suffered or their extended families aren't seeing that. I, of course, started seeing it within minutes. One of my vows in 2025 was to tell more people to go F themselves when they're really out of line. And I did that on the first day. I mean, within a few hours, I got something about the mayor being out of town. Of course, if she was in town, being a black woman, this kind of person would also have said, why isn't she doing that? You just can't even try to deal with it. And the fire chief thing is unbelievable because she's, I mean, you talk about somebody who's worked her way up through the ranks. She went out and saved homes in Malibu when she wasn't on the clock. You just go and I guess what I tried to convey to people more than anything is I've lived here my whole life. We've lived through Santa Ana winds. Many of these events, I lived through the fires in the Palisades. The last time this all burned, and things are just different. And I understand that it's that just triggers people to hear that something's different than it was even 10 years ago. It just is. It's less humid. The winds are stronger. I mean, we had something in this fire I've never had before where you could hear a gust coming. You could hear this weird roar. It happened 3 different times, just me. And then all of a sudden this gust just comes, and it's like, we don't, when we have a Santa Ana, it's usually like if you've ever been here, I don't know if you've been here during one, but it's like a hairdryer blowing. And this wasn't even a hot Santa Ana winter, by the way. And it's just a steady, brutal thing in itself, but this was on another level. And so, yeah, it's disappointing to see all that. And I don't know what people get out of that. And I wonder who raised them off of when they just can't wait to immediately have an opinion. So but again, I'm happy to take on that crap and read it. I just hope the people who are in this horrible, unimaginable moment of their lives don't have to be subjected to too much of it. But I'm sure they have, or they have relatives on Facebook, or blah blah blah, all that. So
before I turn it over to Matt, on the note of being raised right and having a great dad, I got the chance to play with your dad at Austin Golf Club. Lynn Shackelford, national champion on John Wooden's UCLA Bruins. Really a good golfer. Could not have been a nicer host. Just a wealth of information on Crenshaw, Core, the history of the club, every little change in detail. A tree they took out they took out the wrong tree on one of the holes.
See, now you know where I got it. Yeah.
Now I know where you got it. And I just wanted to say I had a wonderful time, and what a great man. We had a blast, and he plays fast, and I like that. We played in under 3 hours, and then I was getting ready to go, and he's like, "No, you haven't tried the Austin Golf Club burger." So we went,
good.
and we had lunch, and really just a wonderful day. I don't know if he told you about it, but it was a good time.
He did. He said nothing but nice things about you, and believe me, he'd tell me if you were a difficult guest. How was the burger? More importantly,
The burger was great. It was really good. I love the clubhouse. I love the setup. It's so quaint, and I played it right after playing Austin Country Club, and it is the polar opposite of Austin Country Club, which was also fun and enjoyable. But I loved Austin Golf Club. It was a real treat.
yeah, it's a good spot.
Matt.
Well, yeah, I want to first just say, while I'm sure we have some wildly different political opinions, I know Rob and I do, and I do a lot of work. One of my main clients here in Oklahoma that I do work for, the public safety unions, the police and the fire, and I think, while I think there are some fair criticisms of budget cuts and things of that nature that happen, I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm not looking for an argument. I just hope you won't tell me to go F myself on the podcast here.
No, that's
But
my
I-
job.
Yeah, that's Rob's job. But I do want to say this on behalf of Rob and I together, even though we disagree politically, one thing we want to do is we're going to come together and for our listeners, look, for an announcement coming soon. We're going to do a special kind of fundraiser from our podcast to help victims. And it's obviously a very small and little dent, but I think if more and more people can find it in their heart to help people that have been victimized by this terrible tragedy, the better we're going to be as a country. And we want to see LA and Southern California built back better than ever. And obviously just hearts and minds and prayers with everybody that's suffering there. So want to get that out there. And we're going to do something fun and creative with this fundraiser too. It's not going to just be, hey, give some money. We're going to do something fun. And Rob and I are bouncing around some ideas on that. So, again, anybody listening that's been affected, our prayers are with you. My first question for you is this. I have last year played 52 new golf courses. First time I've done that in a while. Nowhere near the amount of golf courses that Rob played last year, but I'm trying to get out and play more and more golf courses and appreciate the works of art that they are. But when reading your book, you talk about how you really can't understand a golf course and get an appreciation for it without playing it more than once. And so what do you recommend to people that want to learn more and experience more? Is it more important? Like I think about when Rob and I went to Ireland, all I could think about when we finished at Ballybunion Old Course was, I want to play Ballybunion Old Course again. And I can't believe we have to go home tomorrow because I want to play it again. So how do you balance playing golf courses more than once and getting the experience of playing a lot of new golf courses?
Yeah, it's really tricky, Matt, because when somebody goes on a trip, you kind of have a checklist mentality and you want to see different stuff, especially Scotland and Ireland. But and I do kind of try to advocate. Sometimes when people send me their itinerary, I'm like, well, yeah, you might try to leave some afternoons open. One, because people tend to overdo it, but also
We
there
never
might be
ever
some.
did it in Ireland, ever. We were like
That's good.
teetotalers over there, let me tell you.
Oh no, that part. Well, yeah, there's that overdoing it, and then also just 36 holes a day, and then going and having scotch at night, and then they wonder why the last day they can barely move, and so, but I get it. You're there, you want to see all these things, but sometimes, it's good to leave things open because, people are very nice over there and they'll invite you back. But there's not much of a workaround on that. I guess I advocate that more in terms of, the rankings have done such damage to golf architecture that we're kind of getting out of now. And one of those things is that the way they're structured or the way panelists work, you see it once and you've got to go by that. Well, you may have seen it the day the superintendent had to rest the greens, didn't mow them. Yeah, we know all the weird little things that can happen, and there's just some courses that you can see it once and that you don't need to see it again. It's all right there. It's obvious. But we know there are a lot of places that are a little more nuanced. Austin Golf Club's a great example. Or it doesn't hit you over the head the first time, but the more you play it, the more you love some of the subtleties. Yeah, and that's why restaurant critics go to a restaurant multiple times before they write their review. A lot of film critics will watch a film. If they're not sure, they'll watch it again. And the great works of art generally take a little time, and many, as we know, you're not sure the first time. Like, what is this? This is weird. A new album, or the parallels with all other kinds of creative endeavors are pretty strong. And I think the cool thing though is, and I write it in all my books, is that golf courses are the one thing, the work of art that you can step into and participate in yourself. So the problem, though, as we know with that, is that, again, maybe you only get one crack at it, or um, people judge it based on how they play, and their round taints their view. And if I were running a
There's
ranking,
really no getting around that, though, right? I think about, I played Pinehurst number 2 for the
It's
first
tough.
time this year,
Yeah.
right? Pinehurst number 10, I played great. Dormy Club, I played great. Pinehurst number 4, I played great. I was feeling, it's just a wonderful. I go to play Pinehurst number 2 the last day I'm there, and I didn't have a tee shot. I was just hitting into right all day long. I was fighting my
And
swing.
it was your least favorite course.
No, it was
Oh, it was. Okay.
what I felt like. I mean, I'm overwhelmed being there. Like, you're on the first tee, you're seeing where Bryson hit his bunker shot. The whole time you're having a blast, even though you're playing bad. I just felt like I'm not playing the golf course. I'm just
Mm,
chasing my golf ball through the pine straw, and I'm not getting to enjoy the subtleties of hitting the
mm.
pitching wedge into the right spot on the green, because I'm just punching out and chipping, and you're frustrated all day. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, part of it too. Like, I can't overcome the fact that I played like shit that day. That's
Yeah. Well, at least you're self-aware of that. Unfortunately, a lot of panelists aren't. And I know architects and I've had the conversation. You're listening, you're like, you've got to separate your day or the weather, or your game a little when you're making an evaluation. And it's just very hard. Um, we just know that in golf, and we're all guilty of it. But um, and it's kind of why the book you just read, I've sort of budged on the idea of the experience of a round. I used to be one of those kind of hardliners that it's got to be about evaluating the holes and how the architect did it, and you've got to get the entire experience out of your head. And I've had this cool thing happen, or I've taken notice of it. I have a movie theater up the street. I never thought I'd go see a movie ever again in a theater, and it's run by this local group, the American Cinematheque, and it's for film buffs. But the way you go see a movie with the perfect sound every time, big picture, 70 millimeter a lot of the time. We have Q&As a lot of the time with people hunting awards, in awards season. But we had all the best directors. Francis Ford Coppola was just there 2 weeks ago. But discounting that, seeing a movie with a crowd of people who are focused on it, reacting, not looking at their phones, perfect sound, perfect all that, popcorn smell. They do kind of an old style theater thing, and it's just continued to make me realize that it's the same thing in a golf course, that you can't fully enjoy the architecture and evaluate it if the experience doesn't put you in the right frame of mind. And we all have different views of what a good experience is. Some people love a place with a big tree line entrance and guys coming out of the woodwork to get your clubs with little headsets on and all that. I don't like that. But the point is that the experience is kind of taps into our feelings about a place, and it does set you up for whether you feel comfortable there and you feel ready to enjoy the round. And so it's kind of where I've changed in my view, that all that kind of goes into what you love about a place, or why a place leaves you feeling a little disappointed.
Well, Jeff, I am curious to know too, on top of that, you say you can't really get around it. There are a lot of places where you will only get the chance to play once, whether you're on a trip, whether it's a cool private club or something like that. What things do you pay particular focus to, or what parts of the round do you put the most attention on to try and pick up on those little things that it usually takes several rounds to learn about a course?
Yeah, I try to look, Jake, kind of at the green complexes, and try to ignore where the pin is that day and look at other cool pins, and then seeing, standing at the green while maybe somebody else is putting, and you look back and you go, okay, well, so if the pin's over here today and I hit it down the right side, I've got a great reward. There's just little ways like that to kind of take in stuff that separates you from the day you're playing and allows you just to see all the different ways they could set up the course, which I think there's a pretty good sense now in the golf world that that's important. That used to be something it was 2008, like Mike Davis moved some tees up at the US Open and people lost their minds. And yeah, here we are 16 years later, and um, people really value that. Good players value it, uh, because you realize, well, why would you want a course to play the same every day? It's more fun when you can mix it up. And we all know people who it just kills them to go play a different set of tees at their own course. It's like, maybe you should see your course from a different perspective, and you might actually really enjoy hitting some shorter shots in, or whatever it is. Or, so things like that also help you kind of get away from whatever the current moment is and looking at the big picture of the design. Yeah, I write in my book, routing has become kind of the Oki of the golf world. It's kind of a wine snobbery thing, and I struggle with that because you just don't know what the architect had to deal with, and so I kind of cringe when I hear, "Well, I liked it, but I didn't like his routing." Like, well, you just don't know what they were dealing with, and I don't mean that in a to be rude. It's just a fact. It's architects deal with all sorts of stuff. It could be the owner didn't want a hole over in this area or didn't want something. You just never know. So it's a weird routing's a weird one to try to evaluate. I think it's better to look at all the holes and that's a lot why I love and I outlined it in the book the idea of when you're arguing about a group of people sitting around at the 19th hole and you're arguing and well let's match play the courses and that's why I like it because you just go hole by hole and usually it gives you an answer by the 18th hole.
With the ratings, and I'm guilty as charged. I set out to play the top 100 and finished it, and I honestly think had I just played the top 30 first, I probably would have quit. But do you think that maybe two of the problems with one of the positives with ratings that I think most people would agree to is that it encourages travel. It encourages people to want to go see places in random parts of the country or random parts of the world. I've enjoyed seeing the country and the world this way. Two of the negatives that I see that I want to get your comment on are one, do you think that new builds that developers are telling the architects, here's a blank check, I want a top 100 course. The architects know what the rubric is, they know what the criteria are. Do you think that it could possibly be reducing creativity? That's the first question. And maybe the architect would have built something else, something more fun. Maybe a 69, par 69, or a shorter course, or something more tricked out and unique. And the second question would be the money chase. Very few people have access to these courses. Very few people are members of these courses. One of my clubs just made the top 100 on 2 lists. The other one is typically between 110 and 130. And these clubs are spending tens of millions of dollars, which jacks up the cost for all the rest of us. So do you see those two things as negative, or am I kind of off kilter?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, well, if you really go back to St. Andrews and 18 holes, you could even make a case that just being stuck on 18 as a sort of a set parameter in golf, like par 70 or and above, hasn't been great. But then, yeah, carrying it forward to rankings, oh, it's brutal what things have been done in the name of trying to please rankings. And yeah, I mean, I think the two biggest, and Rob, I'm sorry to say this, but the worst influences in the history of golf architecture are the Golf Digest ranking for emphasizing resistance to scoring, and Robert Trent Jones, who just uh, screwed up a lot of great old golf courses. So I'm sorry. I know you're a member of his masterpiece there, but he was carving out a marketing niche against the old architects. He probably knew better, but he was a master marketer, and even down to the name, sounding like Frank Lloyd Wright. But he did a lot of damage, and his two sons have just done even more damage than he did. And so, yeah, it's weird what things influence people's thinking and what they spend money on, and the rankings have no question have deprived us of probably what we need, which are a lot more fun courses. But I mean, the good news is I'm working on an update of my book 20 years ago, Grounds for Golf, and it's shocking what has changed for the better in golf in those 20 years, and fun being the number one thing. That was a dirty word when we did Rustic Canyon, and people they go, "Oh, it's a fun course." It was kind of a condescending thing, and now people want to know if a place is fun to play. So I mean, that to me tells me the rankings are having less impact, on the outside of a select group of exclusive places.
Well, if it makes
I'm going to interject here, but Geoff, you said earlier about routing that you think it's one area where you have to give the architect some credit because you don't know what the limitations were or what they were up against. And this is exactly what I hear Rob say about Robert Trent Jones's architecture, that people of that era, you don't know what the architects were sort of limited in. So how do you go about some of those architects like Robert Trent Jones or other people of his era and judging their work when considering some of the limitations that they had in their projects?
Well, they had fewer limitations than anybody has now. I mean, it's not even close. There's so many more limitations now. One, just because there's less great land to start with, by far. And then obviously you have some environmental stuff. And you have the biggest limitation of all, which is trying to reach this, whatever the imaginary championship yardage is, which I guess is now 7,500. It was 7,000 for most of my younger life. And, and I think it's interesting. It's hard to, people wonder why Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, and Bobby Jones all have such strong views about distance and the ball. Well, it's because one, they're great golfers and they have their brains work differently in terms of what they see. They see everything. It's crazy what Tiger notices and Jack notices. But then when they went to go work on golf courses and actually do design work, that's when they really came face to face with the things that you can't do because you're trying to reach a certain yardage. And it's hard to explain that to people, but once you finally are out there on a site, you're working on this, there's no question in my mind that when these guys like Tiger actually sit down with a piece of paper and a topo map and a property, and they want to build a reachable par five, it's do or die, and then they're, well, we've got to put homes there, or there's a wetland there, or and it needs to be 580 now to be a hole that puts a good player into that uncomfortable do I or a don't I, when it was 480 not that long ago. That's why they get that opinion on the ball. And mm, because it just makes you realize that what a difference that makes in the fun of the course and the ability to have a place that's flexible for all kinds of golfers.
Well, Geoff, I'd like to take us in a little different direction here.
Sure.
Something you said in your book, you said pro golfers are a curious flock. Well, so are politicians, so are lobbyists, so are operatives at work. I mean, we're all curious flock. I think you could argue that all golfers are a curious flock, but I want to get into some questions regarding politics and professional golf. But first,
Sure.
starting with this curious flock, why are we so worked up that Hideki goes out and shoots 35 under at Kapalua? I mean, at the end of the day, right? I mean, basketball players in the NBA are jumping and like going back to Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant from the free throw line, leaping and dunking a basketball. When I go to the YMCA, I'm barely grabbing the net. It's of course it's a different game for me that's not a professional basketball player. What is it really that absurd to watch these guys take 7,500 courses and turn it into pitch and putts? Because it's not professional golf is not all there is to golf, just like
Right.
the NBA is not all there is to basketball.
Yeah, well, the reaction happens for a couple of reasons. If it's a people's home course, it's just been a natural thing through the history of the game that people want to see their course carved up. So fine, that's one bucket. Throw that out. That's just a personal thing. I think what was really interesting in Hideki's case, because I've always been an advocate for not setting up courses to protect par, because it's just so dreadfully dull and it usually gives you a bad winner. The difference, though, and for somebody who's written about this topic for a long time, is that you do feel like more people uh, are not as interested when you feel like the course is sort of defenseless, that it can't put up a fight, or just have that good little kind of yin yang give and take element to it. You want, I mean, for the money they're playing for, you want to see them work. We don't want to see them lay up and make bogeys, but we want to see when they make a birdie that you feel like it's earned. And I think that's where you've seen a big change in recent years, where more last 2 or 3 years, where more and more people are like, well, it just was missing something. It just wasn't a fair fight. And so I'm encouraged by that, because I don't think it would take much to kind of restore that. But But in terms of architecture and what we love, it's just what it takes now to build a course that puts players in that spot where they're hitting a variety of shots. It's a cliche, every club in the bag, but you know what? There's some truth to all cliches, and that's certainly the
Sure.
case in that one. You want to see them hit every club in the bag. It's more interesting, and you feel like it's more satisfying, and the person earned the win more when they have to go through that variety of, because it's what other sport has that variety of skills and the weirdness of putting versus power, and it's beautiful when it all comes together, and that's what we want.
Well, your position on golf ball rollback's been pretty clear, and I think I probably had a different position than I listened to a lot of your interviews preparing for this podcast, and you may have convinced me. So I'm a wreck there. I don't know exactly what I should believe, but I do believe this strongly, and I want to know if you agree with this. That I think that professional golf in general is not in a good place, and I don't know that it's necessarily helping the game. And it's the same way I feel about baseball. I grew up watching Nolan Ryan play baseball, and what was cool about Nolan Ryan is it was my dad grew up watching Nolan Ryan play baseball. 20 years later, he's beating the hell out of Robin Ventura in 1993 or whatever it was, still at 45 years old, still throwing in the 90s. He was never on a pitch count. And these guys now, everything is analytically driven, and we'll never have another Nolan Ryan. We don't have any no-hitters anymore because people don't pitch complete games.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I look at professional golf, and there are no Rocco Mediate's one of my favorite golfers. I mean, this is a guy that just goes out there and
yep,
has a personality, loves the game. There's not a lot of personalities out there. There's no, they got 5 coaches, everything's business.
the team,
They take 5.5 hours to play golf. I
yeah,
went and watched a college golf tournament at the Blessings Golf Club in Arkansas. It was over an 8-hour round of golf. That's
yeah,
absurd. And
yeah,
I think it's trickling down. And obviously, we look to the pros, and that influences. Just like NBA, they want to wear the same shoes. Golfers want to
sure.
use the same equipment, etc. I don't want to play with you if you're doing aim point. I'm sorry. I don't want to play with you if you're sitting there consulting the yardage book constantly and taking 5 hours to play a round of golf. Do you think that these pros, with all of the money that's involved in the coaching and the analytic guys, I mean, is it hurting the game instead of helping the game?
Well, no, I think yes, it's hurting the pro game. I think the great thing we've learned the last few years with the growth of golf, and whether it continues remains to be seen. But uh, is that it had nothing to do with the pros. It had everything to do with a newfound appreciation for the outdoors and fresh air. And
Or
unfortunately, it took a terrible thing to awaken people to that. But it happened, and and of course there are other elements, social media. There's a lot of fun stuff that happens there that inspires people. um the architecture interest is a good thing. The normalization of I don't know if normalization is right, but the idea, we broke down barriers that to be a golfer, you're playing 18 holes on a Saturday at the country club, and you carry a handicap. And yeah, there's still people who think that way, but I mean, with Top Golf, I mean, par 3 courses were 20 years ago a joke, and executive courses were a lesser thing. Now you're a golfer. If you play there, you're a golfer, and you're family. And so all this has happened without the pros, who are, you're right. Everything you described is happening, and it's unbelievable they don't want to address it. And it's unbelievable when you look at, I love baseball too. And I love that Nolan Ryan documentary. It was just a
oh,
tremendous film,
fantastic.
and
Yes.
so well done. And baseball is inching back with some of these rule changes. It's still too analytics driven, but they're taking it back from the numbers geeks a little bit. And the game is, I mean, look how much faster it's gotten. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's not perfect, but and there is no urgency whatsoever in the offices of the professional game with the lavishly paid executives to grasp what you just described. They just don't. And I've had chats with Jay Monahan many years ago, and he had no idea what I was bringing up on multitude of topics. And Jay's a golfer and a golf nut and loves courses and loves the game, and I just couldn't believe it. I thought he was going to be to understand that. And now the players are sort of in charge. He makes a lot of money, and he's just collecting the checks. until they push him out. And there's this fear of telling the players, guys, you're not as interesting and there is as you think. And then there is just very little understanding in the game, and you would understand that based on what you just described and knowing baseball, that the way the game is played breeds certain kinds of personalities, and the power game breeds kind of a dullard. And we thought with TrackMan we'd see more Rocco Mediate, weird swings, weird actions. And I guess we do, but it still just ends up being about the numbers, and it's stripped the sport of characters because there's just not the variety of ways. I mean, there's not a Calvin Pete anymore. A Luke Donald, who was probably a kind of a successor in a way to Calvin Pete in terms of just hitting a relentless number of fairways. A guy like that coming up now has no chance on the courses they play. I mean, he could be a good player, but
I
he
totally,
can't be an elite player.
yeah, I totally understand what you're saying there. But I also, what's interesting to me is that the one, and this will lead Rob into some questions, I'm sure, about Liv. But I feel like the only guy that really has personality is Bryson DeChambeau, and the only reason
Correct.
Bryson has the personality is because he's doing all these things on YouTube and reaching an audience of people maybe that they're not watching him on Live. I mean, nobody was watching the CW
No.
to watch him play on Live, but he's built an audience of people that he's getting 1 million views plus on these videos.
Yeah.
He's hitting a golf ball over his house or playing a break 50 series with somebody.
I'd argue he was interesting before he went to social media. I know he's gotten of addicted to reading the comments and everybody telling him how cool he is on YouTube. But he was to me the worst loss for the tour before he even got into all that, because he's nuts in a great way. You know, he's a scientist, but he's creative. He blabs. He's passionate. He's got a different technique, different philosophy of the game. Again, I mean, he is such an outlier now. There is such a herd mentality, and then with the teams and everybody's you got to have this guy because he's the coach for PGA Tour players. It's like, no, the beauty of the game is getting the ball in the hole some way, no matter what weird ass way you do it, and that is why he is truly a gift. That is. But we should have more of them. There should be way more personalities like him.
Sure.
But he's clear. He is definitely an outlier right now.
And Geoff, before Rob takes us on a Live tangent, what, if anything, do you think could be done to give us more guys like Bryson, relevant on tour?
I mean, I think it starts with the golf ball not flying as far and not flying as straight. And I wish Tiger feels this way. I wish he would. I mean, just shot shaping. You just think about guys who work the ball. Some people had one flight. I mean, Bruce Litsky, it would go out and dart. Ray Floyd would do that, but he could do it both ways. He could move it right to left, left to right. I just think moving the ball, and Bryson is somebody who tries to do it. But that alone right there brings out a different mentality, just different elements to the game that instead of just this kind of hitting this thing as far and straight as you can. So I'd love to see the ball move more. And I mean, I just think the parallels are obvious with other sports. Tennis has the same problem. It's they've tried. The majors have a different ball. They don't like to talk about it for some reason. It's a weird deal. I don't know why. But you talk to tennis people and they know all about it, and it has made it watchable again. But is there a Jimmy Connors ever going to be? And I'm sorry if I'm dating myself here. Matt probably remembers, and Rob probably remembers Jimmy Connors, but it was unbelievable to watch. And
McEnroe, Agassi,
exactly.
I mean, the personalities in tennis,
we have a lot of Pete Samprases now.
Yeah,
that's what we have.
For the record, I don't remember ever watching them, but it's
Jimmy Connors.
I mean, he was like 38 years old, made this comeback and almost won the U.S. Open. It was amazing, and he would interact with the crowd and
he was nuts. Yeah. And
I resent Jake and Matt predicting that I would take this on a Live tangent. So in that spirit, I'd like to talk about Liv and Donald Trump.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So I don't know if you remember this, Geoff, but during Trump 1.0 regime, you reached out to me about Trump going after the PGA Tours tax exempt charitable status. It was
Oh
retribution.
yeah,
Retribution for
hard
the
to keep
tour.
track of all his things. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember
And
now.
it was part of the first retribution tour. And I looked up who the PGA Tour's lobbyists were, and they were paying a tax lobbying firm only 10 grand a month. And this was a firm that specializes in tax. They have they
Right.
have dozens of clients paying them hundreds of thousands a month. And the tour never really had to worry about Washington because, they had John Boehner, they had George W.
Right.
Bush, or Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer could make a phone call for them. But in
Right.
this era, I have not met, and then this is honest to God truth, I have not met a diehard LIV supporter who isn't also a Trump jock sniffer. And I don't know what it is, but they've turned it into this like golf dick measuring content. And
Hey, we're on Fox
usually-
Sports now. We're on
And
Fox
Yeah.
Sports as of today.
You're
But-
under the Rupert umbrella.
Yeah,
lucky,
Rupert, right.
lucky you.
And usually people that turn everything into a matter of the size of their genitalia and toughness usually aren't working with much on players. But I'll get to the point. What effect do you think Donald Trump's administration will have on the LIV PGA Tour merger, which frankly at some point is going to have to happen? Because I don't think either tour on its own without sort of joining together is moving the needle. And what just general effects do you think Trump's policy proposals might have on the golf construction boom that we're currently in?
Well, on the LIV situation, I mean, my understanding is that they have reached an agreement, and it's with the Justice Department, and obviously on January 20th, it'll be some different people looking at that. But I don't think people should get their hopes up. I think it's an investment. It's what we've seen in various reports. They'll get their 6% of the PGA Tour. Nothing LIV has showed me has indicated they're doing anything but moving forward on schedule and executives, and they have a huge staff, and they now have a deal with Fox, which I think is maybe a time buy. They're still going to lose a ton of money, but they're going to be on Big Fox. They're going to be on Big Fox against the PGA Tour playoffs. It does not look to me like two sides working to eventually come back together. So I don't, and this dream that having all the pros back together is going to solve all the problems is just not the case. The stuff we just talked about with the way the game is played and personalities and stuff is as much a part of this. And I do think there's a portion of the population that's turned off golf because they associate it with Trump. There are a long list of reasons why they've lost. The telecast, the CBS has really done a great job investing and modernizing. Golf Channel and NBC are going backwards. I mean, again, there's a long list of things that are impacting that interest in the players. But so I don't know. Yeah, he said he's going to bring them together, and Elon was going to get involved. Blah blah blah. I think that there's just not going to be a major remedy anytime soon that is what people think it will be. I think the two entities are going to go their own way and see what happens. And I wish them all well. I don't know what the vision is. And then, and then not just to dump on LIV, the tour is run by the players now, and the American players don't want to leave the United States. They really don't want to leave Jupiter, Scottsdale, Greater Dallas, or no, that's about it. And so that's another problem, because you have a vision for kind of a global entity like F1, which is essentially LIV and the European Tour have that view. And I think in my view, that's where golf should go. Times have changed, and a global circuit would work. The PGA Tour has a lucrative contract with NBC and CBS. They want to fill 3.5 hours every 2 days a week on the weekends. It still works for them. The model of the PGA Tour is still really good. Sponsor has to buy 80% of the ads, all that stuff. So they have a totally different incentive, both in where they want to go and play, and in their revenues with television. So that's it's a mess. It's a big mess.
What about
As for
the golf boom construction?
I think Trump could be a real problem. We'll see what happens. I feel like the good news is that he's surrounded himself with so many selfish and unstable people that the things he's thrown out won't happen. But let's just say this happens with deportations, for instance, and tariffs, the two things that would affect golf the most. If he does it and doesn't exempt golf course construction, the current boom of restorations, renovations, and new course construction will crash. White people don't want to dig ditches, as Judge Schmales would be shocked to find out. And most of the people who work in golf course construction are here on visas. I've worked with them, worked on projects, and I know it. I've seen it firsthand. So maintenance-wise, I don't know. That one's the curious one. A lot of clubs expect a certain kind of paperwork when they hire people, so I don't know how the maintenance industry would be affected, but I think there's a good chance that in a lot of markets, the people maintaining golf courses, if they're deported or they fear deportation and go do something else, could have massive ramifications for the entire golf industry, both course construction and maintenance. And then obviously the tariffs, most of the golf clubs are made outside the United States, and some are put together. The pieces are sent here, and then the final assembly is here. So I don't know I don't know how that'll work with tariffs. So that's something to watch as well. That will raise the price of golf clubs very quickly, and they're already probably too expensive. So I think there's a potential, but like I said, my sense so far in watching is that I don't see a lot of competent people. I feel like they're already fighting, and so I think the good news is that it may just be chaos, and the things that have been threatened probably won't happen. That's my hope, because I'd hate to see just selfishly in our little sector of golf, I'd hate to see those things happen to the industry, because it's really cool what's going on right now. The game's thriving in spite of these boneheads in the pro game. People are having fun. There's an appreciation for what the sport is, and we have a lot of work to do. We still have so many great public courses in this country that were done during the New Deal, that horrible communist agenda to make architecture and communities better. We just have an unbelievable number of courses that that the bones are great, public courses, but they need a refreshment. They need a little work. They need new irrigation. They need bunkers freshened up and all that. The clubhouses too, by the way. Those New Deal clubhouses were done by some of the best architects in the country, and they're so cool. They need new carpet, new lighting. So anyway, we'll see.
I will say this: when we had
this is all Matt's fault. I mean, if the renovations and restorations stop, it is Matt's fault. I mean,
here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say. When we had Lou Holtz on our program, Rob showed tremendous restraint, and I'm going to show tremendous restraint tonight. And I'm going to change the subject. Well, I'm going to add, hey, you want to talk about municipal golf? I'm with you. One of our next guests is Nick Saborkich.
No, you don't need to show restraint. I just would
that's
love to
fine.
know
It's
what the counter
here's the
is
thing.
to what I just said.
Our show's not for arguing. I love to hear your point of view. I disagree with it. That's not the point of our show, is for me to argue here. We'll move on.
I want to know. So if the deportations happen, do you think there are
we're talking about deportation.
Americans
The first people that we are deporting from this country, there are hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants that are in our prisons that we are paying taxpayer dollars to house. We're going to deport them, okay? Going through the other thing, we have to have look, our border is porous. I think we can all agree on that. There has
President
to be
Reagan was big on that. Yeah.
Right. There's problems there. And I think once the border is secure, I think we're going to see. I believe that Donald Trump wants more immigrants to come into this country. He's going to be very supportive
of the industry.
Well, I think too, with landscaping companies, they all have had problems with H-1B visas to get legal workers here to this country. We need to improve legal immigration and allowing more people to come in to work, but we also have to have border security at the same time. But this is not the time to have a long border security talk.
Yes, it is. I'm an expert on it.
No, I wasn't even mentioning. I wasn't thinking of security. I was thinking strictly of the visas. and knowing who is working for these golf course contractors and maybe golf courses.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't.
when it comes to
I'm
when it
not
comes to
referring at all
deportation,
to
I
the
don't.
border
Yeah,
illegal immigration thing. I'm referring to people who are here with visas,
right.
and who's going to replace them if they are deported, which is
Sure, and I don't think that that's going to be the focus of the Trump administration.
okay.
It's going to be focused on criminals that are here that need to be
I think it's going to
deported.
be Japanese internment camps 2.0. And I also look, Matt and I are from the same area, and most of the folks are Irish immigrants, Italian, Russian, Serbian. My family is Serbian. And our country's history with immigration is that the last group of immigrants in are really mean to the newest group. And I think Donald Trump is fine having more Canadians and more people from Greenland or the Greenlandians, I don't know, people from Denmark and Norway. It's all the ones from the shithole countries that tend to be brown that are the problem. And on the border, the poorest border, I spent 2 years of my life writing the House immigration bill and working with John McCain and Ted Kennedy. I did nighttime border runs in San Isidro, Tijuana, Nogales, El Paso. I'm really familiar with the word. And I will say this. It's brilliant politics what Donald Trump is doing, but a lot of his arguments and what he's doing, it is absolutely racially charged. And there will be impacts on the costs of goods and services. We have 4% of the world's population. We control half of its wealth. And he wants to shut down, close off our country to trade the movement of people, goods, and services. That's not real smart. It's going to shrink our percentage of the global pie and global wealth. Everyone is for securing the border. We've spent hundreds of
course.
billions. No one is for getting rid of having a border. It's bullshit. Nobody is for not deporting criminals. We have to pass a bill and statute which requires a bipartisan agreement in order to have enough federal judges to hear the cases to get these people that have done serious crimes the hell out of here. It is absolute nonsense to think that either president can do that by executive order. It takes 2 to tango. I just wanted to get that up for the good of the order.
Now, what about the tariffs part and golf clubs and equipment?
Well, I'll let you go first, man.
Well, I mean, I believe we need to have more manufacturing here in this country. I mean, you want to talk about where we're from, Rob? I mean, there's manufacturing that's been decimated because we've allowed so many other countries to shit on us when it comes to dumping products into our country, and we just accept it. I mean, when Weirton Steel was at its high, this is where Rob and I are from. When Weirton Steel was at its peak, it produced steel more efficiently than anywhere in the country. But Russia and China were dumping steel. You know, they were subsidizing their steel industry through their government, dumping it in the United States. And the auto lobby was much stronger than the steel lobby. And so therefore we said, okay, screw the steel workers. Nobody works in that steel mill anymore. It's not because Russia and China produce that steel more efficiently. There's nothing wrong with us promoting more American manufacturing.
There's several problems. There's several problems with that analysis. First, the Weirton Steel story. The steel industry in the United States started to tank in the 1960s when the Justice Department ordered them to do price rollbacks. And by the end of the decade, the steel industry itself had more capital invested in oil and other industries than in their own. The collapse of the steel industry happened 2 decades before the Chinese and the Russians were involved in any dumping. It was on its way out, and it was phasing its way out. I'm not happy about that, but that's what happened. Did the dumping help? Of course not. But that was already when the industry was on its back and on its way to dying. We're not going to resurrect coal and steel no matter what we think. We're not going to bring back your blacksmith named Ezekiel. Like, we've moved on to new industries and new sectors. And if we want to talk about investments in manufacturing, this was the first administration that actually did it. They invested billions in Ohio. And manufacturing jobs have seen the largest increase that we've had in the last 50 years under Joe Biden, particularly where we're from. And when it comes to tariffs, all tariffs do is decrease competition and increase prices. It sends a message to U.S. companies. You could go ahead and raise your price up to the premium that's charged on the foreign competitor. It makes them less competitive, less innovative. And guess who pays the tariff? Not the United States of America. I listen to Trump talk about tariffs. I don't think he knows what the hell a tariff is. The people that pay the tariff are the people on this call and everybody else in the country that is buying these goods and services, not the United States government. We're paying the price increase for a shittier product at a higher price because we're reducing competition. And I'm the communist? Really? I mean, let's talk about what tariffs do. I mean, I originally was a Republican because I believe in markets. I believe in fiscal sanity. I believe in competition. That's not what Donald Trump supports. There's very little difference between what Donald Trump is saying about tariffs and trade and immigration than Bernie freaking Sanders. They're almost identical in their messaging, and they're both full of shit. But back to golf.
Well, it's good to know because I can just tell you the golf manufacturers, Titleist does make balls here, but everything else is brought in, and I guess I worry that we're just going to see prices get even higher, and I think that's a huge problem for where the game is right now. The great things that are happening, they're already too high, and these companies have never done anything to try to innovate to make clubs a little less expensive and more to reach a broader audience. They're still addicted to selling people what the PGA Tour players use. And so they've already got a track record, again, other than Titleist making their ball here, and Callaway makes balls at the old Spalding plant. Other than that, everything's brought in, and with a tariff, I don't see them absorbing that cost themselves. So,
well, and for the record, for our listeners and our viewers, I love Matt Parker. I really do. I love Matt Parker. He is one of the best humans I've ever met. However, on some issues, he's just rock. And on this issue, I mean, like, there's part of me, like, there's a little part, like, I love our country. I want us to succeed. I'm not rooting against Donald Trump. There is a little piece of me that would like to see the price of cheese go up to $80 a slice, or to see golf clubs cost $50,000 just to prove that I'm right. But I hope I'm wrong, because
me too.
we're gonna have 4 years. We're gonna have 4 years of this policy, and I really do hope I'm right. And one thing you know about me, man, if I get something wrong, sure, I admit it. If I say something mean, I'm the first to apologize. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I don't think I eat, but I hope I do. But if you'd like to bring me some new clients and have me argue on their behalf, I'd be delighted to do so.
Absolutely.
As long as it's not for terrorists.
I want to say one last thing politically. The people that claim that Trump's policies are racist are usually white guys. You know, if you look at the people that voted for Trump, more brown and black people voted for Trump in this election than voted for any Republican in the history of our country. So apparently Hispanic men in this country don't think that Trump is all that racist. I'm just going to throw that out there. He had historic gains with minority communities.
Yeah, but wait a second.
That's true. Rob, you have to admit, that's true.
Oh, no. I understand exactly what you're doing here, because you say historic gains is different than
He won a majority of Hispanic men.
No. Okay, but
He won 25% of African Americans. That's double any Republicans ever gotten before.
No, but he lost 75%. And that's the thing, is like, you can say there are gains.
There are a lot of social issues that we can dive into.
Because you guys don't like transgender people and all this stuff. It worked like a charm. You played it like a fiddle, and you got a lot of men of every stripe to say, "Oh, this guy's tough. I like this tough son of a bitch. He's rich. He's gonna make me rich, and he's gonna kick these MFers out." Well, okay, yeah, you made gains there, but you still lost the majority of those segments. And comparing them historically to other Republicans, comparing them historically to other Republicans who are also terrible on that issue. So, on these issues. So, congratulations.
Well, I will say, I'm going to say this, and we're going to move on to talk about golf carts. because Geoff, I want to just let you know how much I appreciate you have the biggest balls of anybody that's come on our podcast to actually talk about politics, and I respect the hell out of that. Thank you. We've had some people on the show that, like, we ask them political question, they clam up, they don't want to talk about it, and I appreciate you having an opinion and having
Thanks
a
for
back
not
and forth.
Switzerlanding us. This
Yeah,
is important.
fantastic.
Well, thanks. I mean, I'm genuine. I really do think it's a big concern. So
It's
we'll
great.
see. But like I
Yeah.
said, he's known to carve out special favors now and then. So we'll see. But as somebody who's lived through a lot of the golf industry's ups and downs, and mostly downs, it would be really a bummer to see this momentum we have, and again, in spite of the flat bellies on the tour,
Well, we all want to see golf succeed.
derailed by somebody who genuinely loves the game. By the way,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, let's move directions
I
here.
know from having dealt with him, and by the way, we're on good terms now. So
All right.
he only tried to have me fired once.
Go cart paths.
Yeah,
In my opinion, ruin many golf holes. In my
They
home
do.
club, hole number 7, there is a path that pretty much runs down the fairway on the right side, and I hit a fade. That's my natural ball flight, and I can't tell you how many times I've hit a really good shot that should be on the right side of the fairway, and it hits the cart path, ruins a $5 golf ball, and goes into the trees. I have made it a goal in 2025. We have a cart plan at our club that you pay a monthly fee, an unlimited cart. In February, I can opt out of the cart plan. I'm opting out. I'm walking more often in 2025, mainly because even if I play terribly, I feel like I've done something if I go out and walk 6 or 7 miles, and I enjoy carrying my bag, and I play better because I'm learning more about the golf course, and actually I feel like it's more social with the other people that are in your group. I want to just kind of get out there. Like, do you believe that golf carts have really hurt golf course architecture through the years? And have we ended up with some golf courses that are just, yeah, it's okay in a cart, but you can't walk it? And how do you rank that kind of golf course in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I mean, we've had a lot of rankings that have actually put walkability into the criteria, and having just read my book, I think it's a defining question, because if you I use the idea of a dog is a place you'd want to take your dog for a walk, because I've seen places where no, you just wouldn't. It's too hilly. It's too much work. There's it's a climb. It's terrible. But it also was, the attempt was to get at some of the things you just mentioned, which is there's just something a little bit more important about walking than exercise. There's a social component that you noted. There's a rhythm. There's a calmness.
Yeah.
When you're flying out in a cart and you're popping out and you're grabbing, like, your whole vibe and rhythm and around is different, and you notice it when you then go out and walk. Oh yeah, I like, you just get, it's almost like a caffeine hit when you're in a cart. So yeah, and it's great exercise, as we know. It's just incredible. People all laugh at golf's athleticism, and golf tries to overcompensate. But the fact is that, and Tiger has kind of ish admitted this year, but yeah, he's shown up in majors the last couple of years, and he's got these issues, but he's not in walking shape. And like, walking shape in golf is significant. And he kind of, as much as he can admit something, admitted it. From not, he plays in Medalist, which is flat as a pancake, and that doesn't get you ready for Augusta National or even
Well,
Riviera, which
here at
is
Southern
largely
Hills.
flat. So Southern
I-
Hills, another one.
I live
It's
here at
sneaky.
Southern Hills, and
Yeah.
I am so glad in 22 that I took my daughter on Saturday and here's the thing: when I go to golf tournaments, and I'm a Tiger Woods fan, he's great. I hate watching Tiger when I'm at a tournament because it's a shit show of trying to
Yeah, it's hard to see.
get in there to see. I'd rather watch other guys. My daughter, all she wanted to do was see Tiger Woods, and I took her on Saturday, and she got some great pictures, and she got to see Tiger, and she was thrilled because he dropped. He didn't play Sunday. He was beat up. Southern
Right.
Hills is not an easy walk, and
Yeah.
he was clearly not
And
in
he
shape
was
for
out of
that.
shape. And he worked hard early in that week. He really, I mean, he played by himself in the practice rounds. He was kind of in a mode of, the game was fine, but physically, and then he ended up he took a bad step and a screw came loose, literally came loose in his ankle, and he had surgery that Monday. But so yeah, so your question, of course, yeah, cart path design and anytime it gets involved in the design, just drives me nuts. When we did the work at LA, a couple of the boneheads of Riviera had to take some shots at some things, and I was like, you have a cart path in play on the 18th green. That's hard to take seriously. That you have concrete 14 feet from the edge of the fringe, and Tiger actually famously hit a shot off it. Just you don't have to come off it much to hit the path and go on down the hill. It's like, what is this? This is freakish. So they're expensive, they're ugly, they're getting more exposed by drone photography has really changed people's perception of the game. And when you see car paths and drone shots now, you're like, it looks awful. Get that out of there. So yeah,
Here's my dog.
I
Mulligan.
just hate carts. Oh, nice.
And
We're getting there.
I would love to be able to take him golfing with me. He's a good boy.
I know,
We would
but
have a good time. And
we're
Watson,
not there yet.
my dog's name Mulligan. Rob's is Watson.
Watson's more of a cart dog. But
can you bring a dog out to RTJ? Can you bring a dog out there?
I do. I bring Watson out. Yeah.
Didn't you have to get a rule change or something for that?
Well, we're not going to go into that on the podcast.
No. Well, but it is. It is true. A lot of clubs and courses are anti that, but now there's a whole group of courses that are having dog days and changing their policy because they realize it was kind of ridiculous.
Let's just say Watson has carte blanche.
Yeah.
But I think getting rid of cart paths is great. Getting people to walk more is great. I do think a lot of clubs need to have the option for older players or for
Yeah.
or
maintenance
for people that are dealing with.
Well, Geoff, I am trying to get into Southern Hills. I live on the course, and I am a prospective member. So hopefully one of these days I will get the letter that I am invited to membership. That would be an honor of a lifetime. But one thing I love about Southern Hills is there's no they look down on you if you take a cart, kind of. Like, you got to walk.
A good friend of mine, Russ Myers, was the former superintendent there up until recently, and I got a few phone calls from him about some of his fights to rant. He just wanted to vent because, he sees the difference in the damage it does to a golf course, especially if you have any cold weather at all. It's brutal. And Southern Hills is such a great walk. That's the thing. And again, like Rob said, there's older people, there's people who have injuries, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we know it's better to have them out there playing with a cart than not at all.
Absolutely.
It's when you see the young, healthy kids, you go, and I get it. I mean, a lot of us got into the game because we wanted to tag along and drive the cart. That's how I got started. And that part, but yeah, it's better to watch.
That should be what the West 9 is for at Southern Hills. You want to take a cart and have a few pops. Okay, that's great. Play some music. But I'm looking forward when I become a member to walking that gem of a golf course and feeling very privileged every chance I get to play it. And speaking of Southern Hills, our next guest on our podcast is Nick Sidorkis, the 25-year general manager of Southern Hills, who now has a contract to upgrade the county and the municipal courses here in Tulsa. And that's where we're going to talk golf and politics with him.
Nick, he's one of the best GMs in the country. Just an absolute treasure. I'm love dealing with him, and as golf writers, we don't, some places you deal with are fine. Some are good. Some are dreadful. Not with Nick. Just
I can't tell you how happy I am that he's got this contract with the city and the county.
Yeah, it's great.
Our municipal golf here in Tulsa really
needs work.
We are a far superior city to Oklahoma City, except when it comes to municipal golf. Oklahoma City's got it down. They got a lot of good municipal golf courses. Ours are not great. They have potential. It's part of the deal is the golf boom was a help, but also a hurt because there hasn't been able to shut it down to really invest into it.
Same problem here.
Yeah.
In LA.
So, Geoff, with your expertise in the golden age of golf, would you call 2000 to present the second golden age?
I think that's a little strong. I think that one of the things I still don't see some courses built like the ones that were done in the past. Again, the site options aren't as good, but I do feel like there are a lot of courses kind of being built for what we talked about earlier. That impressive is still the same problem, impressing a one-time player, and, and you're not seeing a lot of places built for that repeat enjoyment, and they're built for Instagram or they're built for other stuff or drone photography. Although I less so that, but yeah, I'm not. One of the things that's happening, unfortunately, the last few years, Rob, is all these guys are so busy. They're not taking the time to kind of hammer out some of those cool little quiet details that made the old courses. They couldn't build it quickly. The equipment, just the time period that they were building courses in the 20s and early 30s. It took a while, and the longer, it's like anything else, writing, any kind of art form, anything you do where you could put it away for a little while and come back to it. You come back with a fresh sensibility, and the old architects could kind of do that. And now everybody's so busy, they're building things quickly, and they have a contractor, and everybody's looking at their watch. Let's go. Time is money, kind of thing. And so, yeah, visually and all these other ways, there's some great stuff going on, but I don't see people using the perks of modern equipment, construction equipment, in a good way. And that's why Core and Crenshaw are just on another level. When I got to know Ben a little bit working at Riviera, I one day I was, I was a college student at Pepperdine. I knew I couldn't play pro golf. I didn't want to. I had a bad wrist. I was tired of it, and I was always passionate about design. I started researching Riviera, brought all these photos out, and I got to know Ben really well. And but one day I mustered the courage. I go, Ben, what's the most important thing in golf architecture? And I'm thinking, it's gonna be routing or something about strategy. And he goes, time. And I went, huh? So it was kind of disappointing. But then now that I've worked on projects and gotten to know him and we've talked about it more, because Ben takes his time. People think it's all Bill Core. Ben is the guy who's out there. He's like the editor, and he'll stand and stare at something for a while and worry about lines and things. But that's what you should do. You're rearranging the earth to leave behind. You have a responsibility just on that area alone, but also you have a responsibility because people are going to play golf there and pay money, and it's going to hopefully last and have a permanence. And so I guess that's why I can't quite call this era that yet, because they're on another level than everybody else in terms of still obsessing about those details and the details of what happens when your ball lands and runs up to the green. They don't build USGA greens, and I don't want to bore you guys with that, but USGA greens suck. They may work agronomically, but for design, in terms of creativity, they're a pain in the ass. And it's why you see a lot of courses where the greens are kind of up and like it just doesn't work quite right. And getting that to tie in and all that's very hard to do. Well, they don't even do it. They just dig a hole, dump sand, and then they shape it the way they want. It's why everything is just so seamless and ties in beautifully on their courses and looks natural. Looks like it's always, you hear tour pros say, looks like it's always been there. Well, that's a compliment that says everything is just it's just got a quietness and works with the landscape.
So it might not have been a second golden age, but I think we can agree that any sort of resurgence in golf course architecture in the last 20 years, minimalism and Core and Crenshaw were a large part of that. It feels to me like we're sort of, I don't know about done with minimalism, but it seems to have really taken a back seat in the last few years. Do you feel like we're moving towards a different sort of coherent principles of golf architecture for the next, say, 20, 30 years? Or does it feel like it's just sort of spreading out from minimalism that we saw in the 90s and 2000s?
I think the latter. I think you're right. I think it is I think it's spread in a little different way, but I don't see us going back to cloverleaf, Robert Trent Jones bunkers, and stuff that's just like hard is good. I do think there's stuff overbuilt. I think every course, most of them are still too hard. Not enough architects let the golfer win more. And that doesn't mean just making it boring, but it means like risk and reward. And so I don't see us going back to stuff where it's just really penal. Um, but I would love to see some more attention paid to fun and to not get away from that. I don't see us doing that. I don't see the game doing that because it would take a while, and I don't even know what would change that. It changed in the 30s because they had the Depression, and Trent Jones and a few people. There was just a backlash to the jazz age and the 20s and living it up and kind of what they saw as conspicuous consumption, but there was also real refinement in what people did in building architecture and music and in golf architecture that elevated things. And then these guys came along and they kind of sold like, wow, we're going to be different. We're not going to be like those people. I don't know. I don't see that happening again in golf architecture. There's just too much out there that people know about good courses and what gets them excited. Um, I hope I hope that's the case because it's just what's happened in the last 20 years. Again, not to diminish it by not saying it's not. It's just great stuff going on. It's tremendous. I just would love to see it get a little more refined.
I want to make a public ask here that maybe someday we could have you back. I was struck by that. You talked, I think it was the Golfers Journal podcast you were on. You were talking about the 20s a lot and going into the 30s. Well, also, we've talked earlier about the New Deal golf courses. I would love to invite you back at some point in the future to talk about the New Deal golf courses because I actually think that that is a really interesting time period. There are some amazing public courses that were built during that time frame. Um, just throw that out there as something that I find very interesting, and I never thought about the excesses of the 20s leading to some of the golf course design that happened after that. So
Well, a lot of us have tried to figure out why did Trent Jones and these people come along and kind of crap on and remember like A.W. Tillingham's name wasn't even it was just totally forgotten until the early 70s. Um, Most of these guys were totally forgotten. George Thomas's family, Billy Bell, all their stuff got thrown out. Guys I've written about a lot. And it just there was clearly a reaction, and then, of course, you had a world war, but there was a reaction to that era where people said, "Well, I'm gonna go the other way." Maybe it wasn't personal, but it was just, "We're gonna do the opposite. We're gonna do
right.
something new and clean and different." So, the other person you should have on that topic, is, Will Smith, the National, Links Trust. What they're doing is it's exciting, they need help, it's what the USGA should have been doing, but they are really trying to get in there and advocate for courses that are in danger. And we still have so many courses in danger because of perceptions of the game. And then they're trying to obviously bring good architecture that where the bones are there back to the masses. And it's just it's so cool what they're doing because it's not fun work, as you guys all. I'm telling you what you know. It's not fun just on the governmental side of bureaucracy, but then and also just trying to convey to people that golf is not just rich guys at a country club, especially right now, how many people are playing, and that gets in the way a lot of polishing and bringing back these gems that we have, this infrastructure that's out there from largely the New Deal, but not always. So there's other stuff too, but um, we have a lot, and it would be great economically. It'd be great for communities. I mean, just here in LA alone, we've had a thing happen where the food and beverage operations have gotten good, like hipster foodies. Somehow, somebody in our city said, we need better food.
Yeah.
Well, we also need better golf. The golf sucks.
That's
Like the courses are so bad. But this food thing happened, and it's unbelievable how it's changed the atmosphere at these courses and the view of them within the community. Like suddenly, golf is not elitist and douchey, and so we need more things like that kind of stuff happening.
Well, awesome. Rob, Jake, do you have any more, or should we get into our shotgun 9 questions?
I have one more question.
All right, one more.
Would you put Donald Ross, Tillinghast, and McKenzie ahead of Rayner and McDonald on one point? I've now played all the Rainers and McDonald's, and I love them. I remember at one, Fox Chapel, which I really love. But there was an interesting point somebody I took to the course said was, how creative and good are you if you're using templates? If you're essentially, I mean, I understand you're taking principles and ideas from famous holes in the British Isles and applying them to relevant terrain on different properties, which takes a certain amount of skill. But it's hard to call their work. I love the courses.
Yeah, original or yeah.
Would you dock them originality compared to, George Thomas, Mackenzie, Ross, those guys, Tilly?
I don't. I mean, I'm with you in that I do feel like there is something to template holes and the love of them that's a little. It's like, okay, great, but we want to now create new template holes. Let's see what people can do. And that said, like a great singer that covers a song and makes it their own. I'm thinking of somebody like Linda Ronstadt, or I mean, there's people who've done covers. You go, and they've become synonymous with the cover, not the original person who had a hit. I mean, there's a host of them out there, but certain people were really good at it. And Seth
Aretha
Rayner,
Franklin.
there you go, yeah, and she did a lot of covers and made them her own. And people don't know that certain people did certain songs, and it's always kind of funny when that happens. But and in Rayner's case, especially, I mean, the guy didn't really play golf, and yet you go there and he put twists on these concepts that are great, and every one of them's different. And so it wasn't like he just went on tour and played the hits every night and played them exactly the same. He went out and did some different weird stuff. And again, he wasn't really a golfer, so I think the restoration of his work more than anything has been incredible, because you really do realize that. I do, yeah. Tillinghast, Ross, and Mackenzie, they definitely were trying to do something a little more original and a little more based on what the land was and not fighting the land. So it's tough to be picky though, because people love to play Rainer McDonald courses. They just, yeah, they're fun. They're hard, like Pete Dye. Pete Dye, there's a certain fun, even though they're hard. You kind of know now. I think that's it's kind of weird about how as he got later in life, he actually softened his work. But like, going in, it's going to be hard, so you're prepared for it. And you kind of know, like with Pete Dye, it was sort of like with a wink of an eye and a laugh, and he was screwing with you, and so that helps, I think, and is why the perception of his works changed too.
Well, I want to tell you about Will Smith really fast. He invited me to go down to Hoopie Match Club last year. I live in DC, as you know, and it was bringing in potential donors for National Links Trust, which I support big time. And he asked me what I thought about a hoopie after playing it. And I said, well, it's nice, but honestly, I think it's overrated. It reminds me of everything Gil has built in the last 10 years, 12, 15 years. And I think the greens are almost as crazy as Bethpage Black, or as Stream Song Black. And I was just kind of, eh. Well, I didn't realize he was one of the co-founders of the Hoopie Match Club. So. Where he got,
That's great. Good for you. You
Yeah,
gotta
yeah.
be honest.
I
Will
told him
can
what I thought.
handle it.
Yeah, I Shackelforded it.
He can handle it. Yeah, he's a
All right,
big boy.
Shaka.
He's got a yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting pick. No, I mean it's you're not the first. So
Well, Geoff, we like to close our podcasts
Yeah.
with 9 questions, like going out, playing a quick emergency 9. We call it the shotgun 9. Just get out there.
okay.
Just one word answers or short answers. I have 3 questions, then Jake has 3 questions, and then I think Rob has 4 because he's just, wants to ask more than 3. But I'll go ahead and start. It's a question we ask everybody. If you could pick your dream foursome, but it has to include one politician, one pro golfer, and this is dead or alive, one politician, one pro golfer, and one celebrity, who would your dream foursome be?
Oh, boy, a celebrity. Oh, that's really tough. I'd love to play golf with President Bush 41. And Ben Crenshaw would be my pro, no question. So that'd be fun just because those two were good friends. Boy, celebrity, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, 41, I've really come to admire his life, his ability to see nuance and gray that makes him such a villain to modern Republicans. And again, he just led an incredible life. Boy, celebrity, I don't know. I just.
I mean, you live in LA.
mean,
I guess it's not. Nothing
Yeah, I mean,
special
I
to play
played
with
golf with
celebrity.
Sylvester Stallone, who's now, I understand, I saw in the news. And it was one of the weirdest days of my life. It was right at the peak Rambo. I took him to Riv. He had no concept what was going on. Like, he didn't understand that the rope on the driving range, you weren't supposed to walk in front of it, things like that. It was just really weird. So yeah, maybe that's why I've struggled with the celebrity part. And I've played with other celebrities and actors, and some of them are great and fun. Yeah, I can't think of a celebrity. I'm sorry. I'll
That's
think of
fine.
one, but right now, no, I got nothing on that one.
All right.
So
Would
Ben
you
and
rather?
George W. and we'd play fast.
That'd be a great
Or
threesome.
excuse me, not W. George H.
HW,
Sorry.
yeah. All right, number 2. Would you rather play? In your book, you talk about North Berwick being one of your favorite courses. Would you rather play that course with just your dog, or play a course that you don't really enjoy with your 3 closest friends?
No, definitely North Berwick by myself with the dog. Are you kidding? Of course, they don't allow dogs there, believe it or not. It's probably the place you most associate with dogs in golf because they're walking all over the place and through the course. But the members actually were, I don't know how a vote came out. I asked a member and I didn't get an answer. They were just voting on that topic of bringing your dog on a leash. But oh yeah, no question. I mean, one, you picked my favorite course, and yeah, I mean, that would just be dreamy to be able to do that.
Fantastic. All right, my third and final question. In your book, you say there is beauty to be found in 99.9% of golf courses. What is the course that's the 0.1%?
Oh, it's Cypress Point, obviously. I mean, I don't mean to be. I hate naming something that nobody can get on, but I mean, I did a book on the place, and so I've been fortunate in life. And the Walker Cup is just there this year, so everybody will get to see it. Hopefully on TV. Hopefully, Golf Channel doesn't screw it up. It's
No,
just surreal.
and for sure,
It's on
absolutely.
another level of
And
beauty. It's just
I'm
there's nothing
asking the
like it.
opposite. I'm asking the opposite.
Oh,
Not which one has the
I
beauty,
thought.
because you say 99.9 have some sort of
Oh,
beauty. What's that 0.1% that just stay away from it? Because it's a dog. There is no beauty at all.
I thought you meant in the elite. I'm sorry. Anything by Reese Jones probably has destroyed the landscape in some way. Um, yeah, yeah, but yeah, I mean, there's ugly golf courses, but like you say, I don't even. Yeah, I can't. I don't want to pick on an ugly place unless somebody's deformed a beautiful piece of land. In that case, I mean, that's a long list. Aaron Hills comes to mind. There's quite a few. So that have taken a beautiful land and not really gotten the most out of it. And Rees is the master of that. And Bobby's right there, his brother. Chambers Bay, another place. Oh, I mean, yeah, anyway, could have been spectacular, and it's pretty still, but it's a mess.
All right. More positive note and hole 4. Rob and I are both repping our various team colors for this weekend. Give us your 4-course playoff of the best college golf courses, and they don't have to be football schools. Just your 4 best college
Yeah.
golf courses and who comes out on top.
Wow, it's tricky because college golf courses are a mess. I don't know what it is about universities. They have something good and they just try to screw them up. I mean, Stanford, Yale, my God, all the intelligent people who let you know they went to school there, and what a mess both of them are. I mean, Yale may, when Gil's done, will be great, but and it was fine before, just horribly maintained. So those two still is bad. I mean, Stanford's been butchered in a bunch of different ways, and they're dying to redevelop it, which somebody needs to let them know. Golf courses are great fire breaks, by the way. Unfortunately, Rustic Canyon, of course, I worked out with Gil, has served as a fire break twice, and we survived this week. So Stanford, uh, Yale, Notre Dame, same thing. I mean, I hear the bones, the design that Ben and Bill did. I've never been there. I've looked at it a lot. I watched it, but man, they've had ups and downs. I don't know. They park cars on it. What's the problem? They've had all sorts of maintenance things over the years. Anyway, and then University of Michigan, another one that they park cars on. So that'd be my 4. I haven't been to Taconic, which gets ranked as a college course. I'm not even sure which college it
William,
is. William. Oh, of course. I'm a West Coast guy. We don't know the whole. Yeah. So I guess number 1 seed would be Yale on the rankings usually, and number 4 would be Notre Dame. Since Yale's closed, I'll give you Notre Dame in that match. Plus, Notre Dame has turned things around, right? I mean, they had a Senior Open, and yeah, so it's better run, and Yale is still a fiasco. I mean, it's still a fiasco. It's unbelievable. Superintendent just left anyway. So and then that would leave Stanford and Michigan. I got to give it to Michigan because Stanford's kind of messed up my man George Thomas's work. And Michigan has a couple of the greatest greens you've ever seen on the planet Earth. Michigan,
I
Notre
love-
Dame. Yeah, sorry, I haven't been to Notre Dame, so I gotta pick Michigan. Sorry, I got you to the final. Which one? Well, George Wright is kind of happening in Boston. That's where Rick Riley based his book on, Missing Links. But I'd still love to see it done right. Cobb's Creek is number 2. I think they're getting closer, but they've been talking about for a long time. They had clubhouse fires, unbelievable property, amazing bones. And then there's one here in Southern California at Santa Anita called Santa Anita Golf Course by the racetrack. And it was another New Deal thing. They took 2 years building it. Clearly, they just hired all the good shapers from George Thomas and Billy Bell and McKinsey. And they just took a long time, as they did in the New Deal, to keep people employed. And it is a dead flat property and has some of the coolest contours you've ever seen. So those would be 3 that immediately come to mind. But there are so many. I mean, I have a list in this book that I'm updating, and it's one of my projects is to go back because I had a list of places we'd love to see restored and to see how many of them have been worked on. But I mean, you go through different cities. It's just nuts. Almost every city has one, and we have a lot of cities in this country.
and last question for me. Which, if any, of today's pro golfers would you like to see get into architectural work in their future?
Probably Jordan Spieth, although he can get some interesting ideas, but he's passionate about it. Richie Ramsey on the European or the DP World Tour. It's probably the most studious pro golfer right now that's out there. He's Scottish, lovely guy, and really really goes sees other play like Zach Blair goes and sees other stuff. Has really good taste. Gets that it's not all about them. Jordan, I would worry me. He'd think a little bit about himself, as most golf pros do, but not in the way like some of these guys have, where they're just they're just a they're. He would get very into it. I think that's why I'd love to see him because he would be very passionate about it. And a lot of these guys, they just show up and wave and pose for the photos, and although they don't really even do that anymore because the money's nothing compared to what they could make finishing 18th. In a tour or live event. Bryson's going to do a project too. That could be frightening. We'll see. We tried to have a conversation about it, and of course, every question he asked me, he then started to answer. So I don't know. It could. But we did agree to talk after it was done because I said once you've designed a course, Bryson, you will agree with me on the need for a rollback on distance because it always changes you guys when you finally get to do this and you realize all the constraints that are caused by trying to reach 7,500 yards or 8,000.
All right, Rob, take us home.
Okay. Some of mine were covered, so I'm going to go a little on the fly too. Rank the top 5 courses in LA for me.
In LA.
Yeah.
LA North, I mean, Riviera, they've really screwed with. It's hard to put it second. And Bel Air didn't come out great in the restoration. It's fine. It's better, but it could have been way better. I'm going to put Wilshire number 2. I'm just going to. So LA North, Wilshire, Riviera, Bel Air, and the new Hillcrest is good. If we're doing City of LA, I would probably put that. Lakeside's really good too. I'd put Lakeside 5th, actually, probably just ahead of Hillcrest. A little more walkable, a little more fun, and a little more fun club. Hillcrest is kind of high on themselves.
Okay.
Good club, but need to be a little nicer to guests. Lakeside, very welcoming. Wilshire's a fantastic club, undergoing a restoration right now.
Okay. So we've
I think it's going to be
established
spectacular, by the way. So
we've established Cypress Point and its own league.
yeah,
So other than, and I agree, but other than Cypress Point, what are Geoff Shackelford's 3 favorite golf courses in the world that you've played, and what are the 3 that you've not played that you most will play?
North Berwick, Royal Dornick, and the old course I love. Last time I played, it was the day after the 2015 Open, and it was just a dreamy day. In fact, I don't even know if I want to play it again. It was so good. It was just like everything was perfect, other than the hole locations were insane. But Yarn8 puts the pin on knobs and things to protect par. They're actually quietly one of the worst at protecting par. But they get away with it because the greens aren't as fast and the lovely accents and all that. At 3, I haven't played. They're all in the Heathlands. I have not done the outside of London. I've been to Royal Ascot, if you can believe that, but I haven't played Swindley Forest, Sunningdale, either course at Sunningdale, where they're very dog friendly. Like the dogs have accounts at the snack bar. They're that friendly. And St. George's Hill, which has undergone some work, which I've always wanted to play. So those would be the 3 there. I've been fortunate to go to some great places in Australia and stuff, so I've done that. But that would be the region that's next.
All right. Well, don't tell Watson the Bulldog about dog accounts at clubs, because he'd eat.
Exactly.
He would eat me into homelessness. If you were to build a new course today from scratch, which living architects would you hire, or architect would you hire to build it?
At Corn Crenshaw, I mean, they're just in another league. They care. They don't overspend. Bill spends a lot of time working on the routing. Ben spends a lot of time obsessing about what most people think are weird little details, but are the things that are why they kind of go to the next level. And I've played a bunch of their places, and they're just fun. And they may not wow you the first time, and I think that's great. They get better the more you play them, and every once in a while, I'd love to see them be a little quirkier and do some stuff that's a little bit more out there. But all in all, they're fantastic. They're the best, and just great guys to deal with.
Which dead architect?
Oh well. Mackenzie's just a no-brainer, although he probably was a little bit of an artiste. My guy, George Thomas, was, I'm sure he was a very wealthy man, so I don't think he took a lot of suggestions. But he obviously did, because he joined up with Billy Bell from Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh native, emigrated west to California, and it was kind of the genius like Seth Rayner was a construction genius. And like any great duo, like Lennon and McCartney, or take your pick of great duos, there was a little yin and yang thing there they had, and took George Thomas to another level. So I'd probably end up going with him.
Hey, there aren't too many greats in anything that aren't a pain in the ass to deal with. All right, last question. What course in California do you think is in most need of a restoration? And who would you like to collaborate on that work?
I mean, like I said, Bel Air got a lot better, but it missed like the key stuff that would have made it just the kind of zany in terms of the bunkering and some quirky stuff. So that one, I'm Shark Park, the municipal course, can't ever be put back fully, but it was an unbelievable thing in its day. So yeah, I'd probably lean towards Bel Air, and then obviously Santa Anita. I mentioned it could be just a spectacular public course. I'd really love to just see the LA City courses. Griffith Park, George Thomas spent his own money to finish. You can't ever put it fully back because we built a freeway on part of it. But it would be even just a better public facility would be fantastic because it's in a great location and it had the LA Open in the past, cool clubhouse, all that stuff. So I didn't really give you a definitive on that. Sorry.
I was
But
expecting.
we've had so much great
What
restoration
about Pebble
happen here
Beach?
too.
No
That
Pebble
helps.
Beach?
Oh, Pebble Beach, yeah. I guess I've given up, because they've just made clear shutting it down and doing it right is not going to happen. It would be a multi, $200-300 million hit to the region. They're just not going to do it. But yeah, it would be the one. You're right. That would be number one. But I've given up. It's just not going to happen. But it would be spectacular, and it's a bunch of baloney that you can't. If you've ever seen yellow photos, that you can't do that. We have all these tools now with wetting agents and stuff to make the sand maybe not blow away as much. Like it would be, and everybody who goes there now goes, no, why can't you get this thing? Like number 7 used to be, and when they walk through the lodge or something. So, and every year when the AT&T's there, people put up pictures on social, and they all go, it can't happen. It's like, well, okay. So they have a committee ownership, and they're a committee of very wealthy, successful people. So that's a tough place to manage, but they do a pretty good job.
Well, Geoff, I just have to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for coming on the program. This is great, fantastic, and I have to just applaud you for taking bold, strong political stances. A lot of people want to come on and maybe talk politics, and they don't know a lot about golf. Some people want to come on and just talk about golf. They don't want to talk about politics. You talk boldly about both. There were no weak opinions. Fantastic. So thank you so much for taking the time.
My man comes on here and takes shots at Trump and RTJ. Like he comes right to our two co-hosts.
Yeah, sorry. I should have warned you that was coming. The RTJ part. Yeah.
No,
I think you already knew how I felt.
Oh no. Hey, I didn't bring you on here to agree with me on
I know.
golf. But I appreciate
but thanks, guys. I do appreciate it.
It's been a lot of fun.
Hey, thank you for everyone that's listening. Please follow us on social media at Golf and Politics on Facebook and Instagram, golf.politics on TikTok, while you still can, I guess. I don't know what's going on with that.
For a few more days.
Golf Politics Pod on X. And then please subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get this content. It really helps us if you subscribe. So, Geoff, thanks again. Rob, Jake, always great to see you guys. Hey.